Begin with some breaking news. Former Gilman School teacher Christopher Bendan guilty on all charges in his sex abuse trial. Now, he had been charged with sexual exploitation of a child, possession of child pornography, and cyber stalking in the abuse of a then 15-year-old student at the school 8 years ago. Jessica Albert joined us live outside the federal courthouse downtown. And Jessica, the jury seems like they just got the case a few hours ago.
Yeah, Denise, they did. That guilty verdict came down just before 5 o'clock, and the jury, they made a quick deliberation here. It only took them about an hour to find Christopher Bendan guilty on all the counts that he was facing. The victim himself was not in the courtroom today, but I was actually sitting behind his parents. His mother was shaking when that guilty verdicts were read, and then after they were, I could tell that his parents seemed to be relieved that it came back this way. This was an interesting trial when it started last week with Christopher Bendan refusing to come to court. U.S. Marshals actually had to come to where he was and go get him and bring him to court. And then at one point we thought that Christopher Bendan would take the stand himself in his own defense until he decided early today in court that he was not going to. That is when closing arguments began. During closing arguments Wednesday, federal prosecutors alleged Bendan used his position as a teacher at Gilman School to form close relationships with his students, including the victim, calling him a wolf in sheep's clothing and saying that this is a side of Mr. Bendan the Gilman community did not see. He's accused of having sexual contact with the victim starting when he was 14 or 15 and filming explicit videos of him. Prosecutors say Bendan also sent numerous messages to the victim, threatening to release the sensitive material if he did not respond to him. During the trial, several former students also testified the defendant was often the only adult at their social gatherings and asked them to run naked. A former Gilman student who was on the track team Bendan coach told WJZ earlier in the trial,
"Yeah, he's a monster. I hope he goes away for a long time."
During closing arguments, Bendan's defense attorney conceded his client did cyberstalk the victim. He said Bendan did it because he, quote, lost his mind when the victim was leaving high school and moving on. WJZ spoke with a juror who didn't want to be identified after the guilty verdicts. She said even though the deliberation was quick, jurors reviewed all of the evidence carefully.
There were just undeniable points of evidence that corroborated the facts of the case to support the substantiation of the allegations. And that's the decision that we reached.
Again, Christopher Bendan is guilty on all 9 charges that he was facing. That's 5 counts of sexual exploitation of a child, 3 counts of possession of child pornography, and 1 count of cyber stalking. Altogether combined, Bendan could face up to 185 years in prison. He is in custody tonight, and in court, the judge said that he and both sides, the prosecution and the defense, will be meeting tomorrow to schedule a sentencing for Bendan. But for now, reporting live at federal court in downtown Baltimore, Jessica Albert for WJZ.
All right, great coverage. Thank you, Jessica.